Hey everyone, and welcome to On the Margins. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain. I keep calling you my wingman, but maybe we can say sidekick this time?
I think sidekick. Yes, let's do sidekick.
With my sidekick, MVK. Welcome.
Love it.
How
Yeah,
are you?
good, very good. Such a pleasure. Always good to see you, and I look forward to the session.
We've got two great guests for the show today. We've got Andy and Chris with us today. Why don't you tell us who you are and what you do, starting with you, Andy?
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Andy Burt, and I'm currently the managing editor at Investment News, and also I am the co-host of the CFO Bookshelf podcast. I've had a chance to be around corporate finance in the media for a number of years now, and I've been able to track a lot of the trends and the changes that have impacted the space that we're talking about. So just really excited to be here and part of the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, so cool. You're going to bring some good tips, tricks, strategies, and what everybody's talking about. All right, Chris.
Well, first off, thanks so much for having me. I'm Chris Siwek. I head up procurement at Snyk. Been with Snyk now, it'll be 5 years in October, if you can believe it. So just looking forward to the chat. I've known MVK for a bit, so very excited.
Well, I'm going to get to that in just a second. But I'm glad you said the company name, because I almost called it Snyk.
But it's actually a story for it, right? So. Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with the way you pronounce it. I mean, I was told it's Snyk, like sneaker, okay? But what it stands for is so now you know. The concept, yeah, exactly, right? Wow. Do you know what Snyk does?
Tell us, please.
I do.
Go ahead. You do, of course.
We're a customer.
Right? So, well, basically, it's actually pretty revolutionary, right? The concept is it's a platform that actually embeds itself within the software development lifecycle. Because historically, what would happen is you would develop an application, right? And then security would check it at the tail end. And that would cause friction, right? Because they'd find issues and bugs.
And then
they'd throw it back, back over the fence.
Right.
What Snyk does is got this shift left mentality where it embeds itself in there. We're doing some, really exciting stuff with AI, etc. But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic forward-thinking organization. And we are, very thankful and lucky that we've got Coupa as an underpin from the procurement side of things.
So how do you know Chris? Tell us the story.
Well, Chris, let's just say 5 years ago, around about that time, when I think I just started with Coupa, we were engaged in an opportunity at Snyk at the time, and we were also exploring Snyk for ourselves internally. So we are a customer and vice versa. Yeah. I think it was at that point. We all sometimes make pivots, and Chris actually decided to go into a different direction. And that sometimes happens. Yeah. It's okay, no hard feelings. And we've always
we're here today.
No, totally, no, but it's good, but we've always, I've always admired Chris in the way he thinks about procurement, how he thinks about leading team, how to really drive value. And so we've always, from the very first interaction, we've always had just a really good rapport, really good connection, and we remained connected over the time, and I think like 2 years ago or something around that time, Chris reached out and said, "Hey," so meanwhile we became a customer of Snyk. Snyk.
Cool. Snyk. I get it.
And now they, of course, Chris made a pivot, which I admire him for. There's a lot of procurement leaders, and I think this is one point I really wanted to make, and why I admire Chris, and then we'll get into the topic. He knew that the decision he then made could have been better. It could have been more optimized, drive more value, and I highly admire that, because there's a lot of CPOs out there that don't do that. They go bet the farm on a certain solution. It started with an I in this case, and then realized that it maybe was not optimized, but then just continue to invest. It's like investing in a 1995 Honda Accord. You probably need to realize that that's not a smart move. And I admire Chris, and I just want to compliment you for that.
Oh, thanks so much, Michael. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I saw Michael, and I know we need to get on the topic, right? But I remember seeing him. I used to work for Veeam Software prior to Snyk, and I remember you on the Trendsetter, Michael, right? And I was like, I need to meet him sometime, because it was like really really kind of resonated what he was saying. And anyway, the rest is history, as you said.
Yeah,
right?
it's amazing.
And that's
nice.
It. Yeah.
Well, I met Andy this time last year at Inspire, and since then you've been on one of my podcasts as well. So that's been a lot of fun. But you talk to a lot of CFOs.
Yes.
So what's top of mind for them when they're thinking about AI? Right? What are they saying about AI? What are they talking about? How are they thinking about it? How are they talking to their teams about it?
One of the challenges that that comes up a lot is, and I think this is true for any transformational technology, but specifically for AI, is that we talk about it in terms of, is this a one-way door or is it a two-way door? Because if it's a one-way door, you go through it, there is no turning around, that door is closed, and you have to now live in the new reality. And for CFOs in particular who are grounded in how do we create certainty for our company, for our direction, if we can't go back in time and redo this, what does that mean for me as a leader? What does it mean for the C-suite? How do we lead our teammates and things like that? And so it's a really heavy, weighty kind of conversation that CFOs will have with the CPO, with the CEO, to determine whether the investment is right and the right timing as well. And so when you're grounded in, I have to create a world of certainty, and AI still has a lot of uncertainty around it, that is one of the biggest question marks that they face.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those conversations have got to be interesting, right? Because you can't make a decision in investing in technology without the CFO, being behind you. And so you've got to be able to tell that story to them as to what it's going to do for the organization, what that investment means. Absolutely. And one of the things that I know when CFOs have conversations with, say, the CIO about where should we be spending our money or on the technology that we know we're going to need, one of the biggest concerns is, are we going to end up with another set of shelfware that we just, tried to process and it never went anywhere? People didn't use it. We didn't give them the right training, the right structure. And so they're a little bit gun shy about the investment. And even though CFOs talk in theory about, we know we need to do this, we know we need to do this, again and again, you look at the studies and the surveys that are being done about the adoption rate, it's still really low. And I'd love to know if that's been true in your worlds as well, but that's definitely what I've been seeing over the past 18 months is, we know it's right, but we know the adoption is slow. Where's the break in sort of the focus on how do we move forward?
Yeah, that's a great point. So that actually gets good. Maybe, Chris, you want to, you guys are also in the AI space from a business point of view, but what kind of barriers have you seen then with regards to AI adoption?
Yeah, I think bang on what you're saying, Andy. I think where I see kind of barriers from AI adoption is both what you said. I'm also seeing and hearing in the industry of folk taking quick action without actually fully kind of baking out the business case, right? Yeah. And then it becomes a failed deployment, right? I'm hearing a lot of stuff, in LinkedIn and other places talking about the fact that, hey, maybe AI is not as hyped up as, or it's not, it's not as hyped up as it should be, right? Or sorry, what am I saying? It's like, it's not delivering the value, right? And it's because, again, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it's more around the, potentially, that they just haven't, thought it through and it hasn't been, kind of deployed correctly. And on the flip side to that, like what you were saying there is, I also think there's a danger if you wait too long, right? You can miss the train, And I've even heard, it's funny, I've even heard of folk actually building and taking time to actually, build out these bots or AI, only for another company come in and actually do it better. So they've kind of, built it out internally. Right. And then some other company comes along and is, suddenly they're doing it. It's a lot better and it's kind of wasted effort. So I totally agree with you. We're in this kind of weird time, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just, when's it right kind of thing, right? Well, it's a heavy burden of responsibility, right? These are large investments that 100%. We're talking about. And, these folks and these leaders are taking on the responsibility of which is the right investment in a time where there's a lot of choice out there, there's a lot of questions to be had, but also it's going to change again in 6 to 12 months. Exactly. Yeah. And so how do you really make that decision? And I think it comes down to culture, and we've talked a lot about teams, right? Is the fact that you have to give that leeway, you have to give some grace to include some of those factors when it comes to making the decision in the investment. So when you're speaking to CFOs, Andy, what are some of the problems that they're hoping that AI can address? What are some of the trade-offs? And I think I just mentioned one with the responsibility around the investment. Yeah, I think anytime you're deploying a new type of technology, you're looking for efficiencies, you're looking to bend the cost curve downward, you're looking to be able to extract greater insights from the data that you, in theory, are collecting and housing and trying to make sense of it. And so there's always going to be opportunities. What I think AI has the potential to do is create a synthesis out of the information to help you make better strategic decisions going forward. That is
the promise of it. But the hurdle, the obstacle that I think a number of CFOs face, especially when you talk about demographics, those who have been in the role for, say, 10, 20, 30 years, and they're not ready to kind of learn that new type of technology or how it impacts things. But then you have a younger demographic within the company that says, let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm already using ChatGPT. And that CFO is like, whoa, whoa, what? We don't even have governance around that. And so there are these hurdles and then these roadblocks that the CFO has to have a proper mindset around. It's like to your point, we have to move forward. We can't miss the train, because all we're going to be left with as a door is the door frame, and the train is all the way down the road, down the railroad. But the urgency has to be balanced with, okay, but if we're actually going to go with this, right, if this is the right timing, one, it's the money investment, but two, it's the culture investment. To your point, is you have to be all on board with a cultural shift on how you do business.
Yeah.
Well, and the training has to vary. And we talked about this on another episode, is that we have to invest in training of the teams for them to understand the capabilities of AI and how they can use it. But the training, like you said, has to be done in a variety of different ways, depending on where people are in their careers.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, and it's also about like creating an environment where failure can potentially be an option.
Can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? And we don't have to have it right the first time around. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we talked about earlier, it's like get started. Start small. Don't go and attack this as like some big beast. No, just start small.
Progress over perfection.
Yeah, exactly. And
There's lots of dollars in the
which, exactly. But which for the CFO is extremely uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
And for the CIO as well. I mean, for every executive, but it's and we need to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if I see what my kids can do, they're 16, 14, and 8. I mean, my 8-year-old, I'm like, how on earth did she actually know that? And I'm like, the speed, and I lectured at the University of Tennessee. If you look at how smart is probably the right word, or maybe that says more about my brain power.
Or technology savvy,
but it's technologically savvy, and just embracing that, and it's hard. I mean, I am certainly not in my 20s. Nor in my 30s, nor in my 40s.
You've been in
I'm opening
procurement
up
for
the door.
how long?
Oh my goodness, I'm opening up the door. Okay, let's move on. Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to add to that, fail fast, right? Like if you, like you said, like be vulnerable, do it. But if you're going to fail fast. That's the way we
Fail
can
fast.
live within Snyk.
Yeah,
So sorry, didn't mean to go.
No, totally no. But I was going to ask you, like, to get your point of view. So you were already starting. Like, what's your point of view, and what are some of these trade-offs that you're seeing?
I think that's a great question. I think the first thing's around potentially, and I think it's a double-sided coin. I hear different arguments, okay, but I think personally, right, if your data set's not 100% or it's not in a good place, you might not get the good. You might not get good results, okay? So the trade-off would be to make sure that data set is in a position that, you can rely on the results to come out. I mean, again, if you think about Coupa, right, like the fact that they've got that data set, the community, I've always said it's a goldmine, right? I think it's all structured with Hurley and, the keynote, etc. But there's others that say, the AI is coming along so fast, maybe that's not so much of a worry, okay? So there's that. The other thing I think around that's barriers with a trade-off is potentially around bias. I'm thinking specifically in the procurement space, Michael and team, right? In regards to, if you have, the agent go out and do an analysis on, your spend and your suppliers and give you a suggestion. Hey, you're using 3 suppliers and we suggest you use, X. Is there a potential case of bias there where it's just taking the data and what you've historically done? So if you're using a set of suppliers in a certain region, a certain size, they're just going to give you that result kind of thing, So trade-off there would be to kind of, in my mind, just don't trust blindly, right? I think we're still having to make sure that we're,
human in the loop.
Exactly.
But also, because we talked about this on another episode, is the human bias element.
Yes.
Is that outcome, yes, you don't want to fully trust it, but also you don't want that outcome to be biased by what we feel as a human, and whether we're comfortable with it or not comfortable with it.
100%.
Yeah.
It's
Right?
really,
Yeah, you don't need to throw darts at it, right?
Well, and also if you're going to present an outcome, but you're doing it based on your own bias and not necessarily the outcome that the data has provided, that becomes a bit of an issue too. So leaders and the C-suite have to make sure that they're having those conversations internally to make sure that there's a balance of both. Because it can't go one way or the other.
It's the ethical usage, you know, and ethical can mean different things to different people, but you need to, for your company, decide ethically how you're going to use the outcomes of whatever AI is going to prescribe to you.
So don't get too far, you know, into that train or that door without thinking about the ethics, right? And I think, Chris, that's the next question. Like, what are some of the ethical implications around, and Andy, feel free to answer this as well, but the implications of AI, what are the ethical implications?
Yeah, so I think you'd kind of really, you know, we'd kind of mentioned around the potential for the human bias. I think that's very valid. You know, I think there's also the aspect with, you know, AI's it's you know, it's building, it's growing, and etc. But there's an angle there as well in terms of, you know, who built the AI and how that kind of works as well, right? So it's just, I think the whole bias side of things in my mind is just, you need to be, you just can't blindly just take in everything it says, right? You've got to be very, you know, just to have that human element, right? I just don't think we're there yet just to take it blindly, personally.
But also the information that you're putting in, and depending on what platform you're using, right?
Yes.
Like if we think about ChatGPT, that is a very public platform. And so you don't want to be putting in your company's secrets, you know, to put together an email to somebody, 100%. Right? Andy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I've actually had the chance to help train some large language models around some of the domains that I'm an expert in. And it is so meticulous, and you can't help but input your biases in it. It's nearly impossible. And one of the things that I think about is AI, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about just the bias and also the patterns. AI is designed to detect patterns, not necessarily facts. And when you don't understand that as a leader, and you're starting to build these large language models around your domain, there is real risk inherent in what we call hallucinations, right?
Yeah.
Is that the patterns emerge with these hallucinations that are not actually true, but that's what the patterns of the data actually detect. And I was just curious to know how your company thinks about that, how you think about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're being a cybersecurity company, right? We're very, you know, security focused. We do use, you know, generative AI, but we've set it up so it doesn't, you know, it doesn't self-learn outside, right? I can't remember the exact terminology, but it's the concept basically that it's not, you know, it's not going out to the public, right? Whatever we put in there is kind of secure.
So sort of a closed system.
There you go, right, in terms of that. But you know, it's funny, right? Because again, I was speaking to a colleague around, you know, the ability to put additional filters, right? And like you said, so being able to kind of control and even trying to be as unbiased as possible. Again, I'm going back to the procurement world in this case, right? It's where, you know, there was the ability to actually have like you could put your contracts in, and you know, get key information out of it, right? So it's, you know, you put all your information and contracts in, and ask the co-pilot whatever to, you know, give you the information back. But if you're too security conscious, right, and you basically
it's all about balance.
Exactly, it's all about balance. Where we can't share X, we can't share Y, then you're losing potentially 80% of the value, right, to the point where you're getting kind of nothing out of it. So yeah, I think it's definitely a balance, in my opinion, right?
And hallucinations, can I call that fake news by AI? Like, is that what we mean by hallucinations?
Yeah,
or?
I would. That's how I interpreted it.
Sorry, I had to. All right, one last question, and then we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, so Chris, so you know, we can talk.
We can talk about this all day long.
Well, you know, we'll hang out later.
Okay, deal.
You know what happens in Vegas sometimes does not stay in Vegas, but maybe later it does.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, so what are some of these practical tips that you can share with the audience for improving AI adoption and getting the most out of the technology?
Yeah, great question. So here's my take on it, right? I think as a company, if you've not done already, you need to make sure you've got the strategy in place, right? You've got a vision, you've got the governance like we discussed, right? You've got making sure that you know, it's like, how are you going to use it, right? And it all goes back to ethics, etc., right? It's like, it's not just a free-for-all, right? You go in and just, like you said, everyone's starting using ChatGPT, right? So have that in place, the policies, etc. If possible, like what we've done at Snyk, get a set of pre-approved, legally, you know, security-approved tools, and emphasize the use, okay? So people are not going out and deciding just to use X. It's like, hey, these are the official tools to use. And then, in my mind, it's training, right? So from Snyk side of things, it's heads down, it's top down, okay, our CEOs, you know, very much seeing everyone within Snyk being an AI expert, okay? So it's, everyone goes through AI training 101, right? Okay, what is expected? Like, what can you do with it? Yeah. What can you and what can't you do with it? Again, going back to the ethical, what protection, what, you know, what can you do? Like, what's right, what's wrong? We've also gone through a data classification policy. So we're now able to, you're able to quickly see, okay, I can share X with this, you know, bot, right? But I can't share Y, like really sensitive data. And it's just training folk on that, making sure that, you know, and really just emphasizing the benefits. And, you know, again, it's like, you can't, like, you know, AI is not going to, it's not going to replace humans, right? Although humans will replace humans that don't adopt AI. I think someone that was a Harvard professor I read had said something along the line. So, like, you've got to train folk and say, hey, it's not, we're not, you know, it's not going to replace you, but you need to adopt it. Otherwise, you're going to.
You got to pivot. You got to figure out, you know, what it is, the upskilling. You know, what's sort of the next path for me.
Exactly.
But I think you're right on the training. I mean, you talk about training around AI. We talk about cybersecurity training, right? And you have to do that ongoing. This is just another layer, I think, of training around technology that we need to be able to implement with our teams. So, Andy, one thing. What's one thing you want to leave the audience with around, you know, practical tips, maybe advice around AI?
Yeah, sure. So one of my favorite CEOs once said to me, every problem at its core is actually a people problem. And, you know, we think about technology, about operations, things like that, but everything is a people problem at its core. And I think we can actually use what you both said about failing fast. The very nature of AI is designed to fail fast, right? And that's how it learns. And so we can use that as an analogy, as a teaching tool, to have the kinds of grace, as you said, and patience with the people that we were training in the exact same way that we are training the AI itself. And as long as you keep those two things in perspective, I think everybody kind of moves in the same general direction at the same pace that you need to.
Great point.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Love it. No, I'd say that's a wrap. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. Guys. Well, Chris, Andy, thank you so much for joining us here for On the Margins.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now it's time for trivia. Get your answers ready, put them in the comments, and you might be our winner of the Coupa Pickleball set.